My fiancé didn't even call me. Just a single text, the wedding's off. No explanation, no apology, like I was supposed to just accept it. So I did. I replied, all right. But instead of chasing her for answers, I sent a quick message to her brother. Got a minute? Need to show you something. When he opened the folder labeled Work Trip 2024, his face said everything. 3 hours later, my phone was lighting up with her calls. By the next morning, she wasn't canceling the wedding anymore. She was begging for it. We'd been engaged for 8 months, and I thought we were in that pre-wedding chaos where stress just makes people snappier than usual. Seating charts, guest lists, deposits, all the little fires you put out before the big day. We'd had disagreements, sure, but nothing that felt like it would make the whole thing collapse. That's why her text hit me like a brick. The wedding's off. No context. No phone call. Just those 4 words, followed by radio silence. I stared at the screen for a good minute, half waiting for a follow-up. Maybe a, we need to talk, or at least a flimsy excuse. Nothing. I typed back 1 word. All right. No punctuation. No emoji. Just acceptance. Because while she thought this was coming out of nowhere, I'd been piecing together my own quiet little puzzle for weeks. It started 2 months ago, with her so-called work trip. 3 days out of town for a client meeting. Nothing unusual for her job. But she'd been strangely cagey about it. No photos of the hotel. No posts on social media, which was unlike her. Then, the day after she got back, I saw the email notification on our shared tablet. It wasn't even snooping, it just popped up. An auto backup from her phone had synced to the cloud. Inside was a neatly organized folder. Work Trip 2024. Curiosity got the better of me. The first few photos were harmless. Conference room shots, a dinner menu. Then came the selfies. Not of her, but of her and him. A man I recognized instantly. Her colleague. The one she'd mentioned in passing a few times. Always with that dismissive tone meant to signal no need to worry. They weren't exactly hiding it in those photos. Drinks at the pool, breakfast in bed, one particularly cozy picture with his hand on her knee. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I downloaded everything to a secure drive and let her think I was none the wiser. If she wanted out, she could say it to my face. So when that text came through, cold, flat, final, I realized something. She thought she'd blindsided me. She thought she was in control of the narrative. That's when I messaged her brother. We'd never been close, but he'd always struck me as a decent guy. He'd once told me, half joking, if you ever catch my sister doing something shady, you'd better tell me before you tell her. I figured now was as good a time as any to cash in on that. His reaction was visceral. A long silence, then a muttered, "What the hell?" as he swiped through the photos. By the time we parted ways, his face was red and his phone was already in his hand. 3 hours later, my phone started buzzing. Her name, over and over again. I didn't answer. Not then. Not yet. The first call came at 7:18 p.m. I let it ring out. The second came at 7:21. Declined. By the third, she'd switched to texts. We need to talk. No apology, no explanation, just urgency. I ignored her. Instead, I sat on my couch with a beer, scrolling through the wedding vendor contracts we'd signed. Her name wasn't on most of them. My credit card was. My deposits. My money. Part of me wondered if she was panicking because her brother had confronted her already. The other part knew for sure that's exactly what had happened. Her brother doesn't do subtle. If he'd seen those pictures, he'd have gone straight to her. By 8 p.m., she'd moved to a different tactic, sending long paragraphs. How she'd been confused lately. How she needed space. How this trip had been strictly professional, and I'd misinterpreted things. I didn't reply to any of it. Because here's the thing, silence drives some people insane. And right now, I wanted her squirming. Around 9, my phone lit up with a new message, but this one wasn't from her. It was from her brother. She's losing it. Says you blindsided her. Wants to explain before it gets worse. I just sent him a thumbs up emoji. By the next morning, I'd received 14 missed calls, 27 texts, and 1 voicemail that started with her yelling and ended with her crying. Her tone had shifted from indignant to desperate in less than 12 hours. At noon, there was a knock on my door. Through the peephole, I saw her, hair messy, makeup smudged, looking like she'd slept in her car. I didn't open it. Instead, I called through the door. "Didn't you say the wedding was off?" There was a pause. "I didn't mean it like that," she said, voice trembling. "Can we please talk?" Just for a minute. I told her we could, but only if her brother joined us. Another pause. Why would he need to be here? Because he's already part of this, I said. And I don't like repeating myself. She left without another word. An hour later, her brother called me. He was laughing. She's in full damage control mode, he said. But she still won't admit what happened on that trip. Think she's hoping you'll just let it slide. I told him I wasn't letting anything slide. Not the photos. Not the lies. Not the arrogance of thinking she could cut me loose without consequences. That night, I sat down at my computer and pulled up the rest of the backup files. If she thought the photos were bad, she clearly hadn't considered what was in her own videos folder. The videos were worse than I expected. Not because they were explicit, although a couple of them came close, but because of how casual they were. Hotel balcony at sunset, champagne glasses clinking. Him calling her babe, in a tone that made it sound practiced. Her laughing, leaning in, clearly comfortable in a way you don't get on a strictly professional trip. And here's the kicker. She was the one filming. In one clip, she pans the camera to herself and says, "Best work trip ever." Then she turns it back to him, and they kiss. I sat back, shaking my head. It wasn't shock. I'd already known. It was the sheer audacity. Like she'd built herself a little highlight reel of the trip she never planned to confess to. By the next morning, I had a plan. If she wanted to talk, fine. We'd talk. But not on her terms. I sent her a single text. "Meet me at the cafe on 7th at 5 p.m. Bring your brother." Her reply was instant. "Why?" I didn't answer. At 4:59, I walked into the cafe and saw them both already there. She looked tense, arms crossed. He looked curious, maybe even a little excited. I set my laptop on the table, opened the folder, and hit play. No commentary. No accusations. Just evidence. Her brother's face went still. Her own face drained of color. When the third clip ended, she reached for the laptop, but I closed it. "That's enough," I said. "You both know what's in there. And you both know why the wedding's over, because you called it off." She opened her mouth, then shut it again. "Finally," she said, "it's not what it looks like." Her brother actually laughed. A short, humorless sound. "Looks pretty clear to me," he said. I leaned back, keeping my voice calm. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to make sure this doesn't get twisted into something it's not. You ended this. I accepted it. And now I'm walking away clean." She tried to say something about privacy and personal matters, but her brother cut her off. "Personal matters don't usually involve lying to everyone," he said. By the time we left, she was still pale, still shaking. I hadn't raised my voice once. Didn't need to. The damage was already done, and for once, it wasn't me who had to explain herself to the family. The next 48 hours were quiet. Too quiet. No calls. No texts, which meant she was regrouping. On the third day, my phone lit up with a message from her cousin. "Hey, just so you know, she's telling people you overreacted and made up some story about her coworker. You okay?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I called her brother. "Is she running her mouth already?" He sighed. "Yeah, she's trying to get ahead of it. Told Mom you've been paranoid for months. That you twisted things to make her look bad." That was the opening move I'd been waiting for. Because she wasn't just lying now, she was going public. And if she wanted to play that game, I had no problem matching her. I asked him a single question. "How much do you want your family to know the truth?" His pause was telling. "All of it," he said. That night, I emailed him a private link to the backup folder. "Share it with whoever needs to see it," I wrote. "But make sure they understand, I didn't send this to humiliate her. I'm just making sure the truth isn't buried." By the next morning, the calls started again. This time, they weren't just from her. Her aunt, her father, even one of her bridesmaids. Some were angry, some were awkwardly apologetic, and one, her cousin again, just said, "She's melting down." Thought she could spin it. Didn't work. At 2 p.m., she finally showed up at my place unannounced. She looked different this time, less defiant, more calculated. Like she'd rehearsed whatever was about to come out of her mouth. "We need to talk," she said. "You already said that," I replied, leaning against the doorframe. "Didn't go well the first time." "This isn't about us," she said, lowering her voice. "It's about keeping this contained. For both our sakes." I almost laughed. "Contained? You told half your family I'm a liar. Now they know you're the one who's been lying. I think that ship's sailed." Her jaw tightened. "If you keep pushing this, it's going to get ugly." "Ugly," I said. You mean uglier than walking out of our engagement and getting caught on video with your coworker? She didn't answer that. Instead, she tried a softer tone. I made a mistake. Let's just agree to move on quietly. I didn't bother hiding my smile. Quiet isn't really my style, I said, especially when someone tries to rewrite the ending to my story. For a moment, she just stared at me, like she was realizing this wasn't going to end the way she'd planned. Then she turned and walked away. I knew it wouldn't be the last time she tried something, but the balance had shifted. She wasn't steering this anymore. The attempt came faster than I expected. 2 days later, I got an invite to her casual get-together at her parents' house. No explanation, just a group text to me, her brother, and a few mutual friends. Her brother called me immediately. She's setting something up, he said. Don't know what, but she's got that I'm gonna fix this look. I told him I'd be there. Not because I wanted reconciliation, but because if she was going to try another stunt, I wanted front row seats. When I arrived, it was all smiles and light music. She greeted me at the door with that practiced warmth I'd seen her use on strangers she wanted something from. Glad you came, she said. Inside, I quickly realized who the audience was, not the whole family, just the people whose opinions mattered most to her. Parents, 2 close cousins, a bridesmaid, people she needed to believe her version. We sat in a semicircle in the living room, and she launched into her speech. How she'd felt pressured by the engagement. How things got misinterpreted on her trip. How rumors had spread that were only hurting everyone involved. It was clear she was painting me as the overreactive ex. And she was doing it smoothly, until her brother spoke up. Want to clear those rumors up right now, he said, pulling his phone from his pocket. The room went still. She froze, then gave a tight smile. I don't think that's necessary. Oh, I do, he said, and tapped the screen. The balcony video started playing. Her voice, unmistakable, saying best work trip ever before kissing her coworker. Her parents' expressions shifted instantly. Her mother's hand went to her mouth. Her father's jaw tightened. She tried to talk over it, but her brother didn't stop the video until the end. When he finally did, the room was silent except for the sound of her breathing, fast and uneven. I didn't gloat, didn't say a word. I just stood up, looked at her father, and said, I think that clears it up. Then I walked out. My phone buzzed before I even reached the car. Her cousin, texting. Wow, she's done. Completely done. For the first time since that text saying the wedding was off, I felt the tension leave my shoulders. Not because I'd won, but because there was nothing left for her to twist. She'd been exposed in the one place she thought she could still control the story, her own home. The morning after her family summit imploded, I woke up to a string of unread messages. Not just from her mother, too. Her mother's text was simple. Please, she's been crying all night. Can you just talk to her? Hers were longer. Paragraph after paragraph about how humiliated she felt, how she never meant for things to go this far, and how we could still fix this if we both tried. It was almost impressive. Less than 48 hours ago, she was in full attack mode, telling people I was paranoid. Now she was painting herself as the broken-hearted fiancée, desperate to make amends. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I forwarded the messages to her brother. He called me within minutes. She's just damage controlling. Don't fall for it. Still, I was curious enough to take her call when it finally came. Her voice was soft, almost shaky. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I made a mistake, and I'm sorry. Which part? I asked. The cheating or the lying after? She was quiet for a moment. Both, she finally said. I didn't think it would matter. I thought we could move past it. That's the thing, I said. You thought you could make the rules. Decide what mattered and what didn't. And now that you've lost control, you're sorry? I am, she said quickly. I swear I'll cut him off. I'll quit my job if I have to. We can start fresh. I stopped her there. You think this is about him? No. This is about trust, and that's gone. You can't start fresh when the foundation's already rotted. There was a long pause, and then her tone shifted again, from desperate to calculated. If you walk away now, you're going to regret it, she said. We had a life planned. A future. You're throwing that away because of one mistake. One mistake. I repeated. That's cute. How many mistakes were in that folder? 10. 12. She didn't answer. Just started crying again. The kind of crying that sounds rehearsed, where the pauses are too perfectly timed. I let her go on for a minute, then said, Look, You're not crying because you lost me. You're crying because you lost the version of me you could manipulate. That's gone. And so am I. Before she could respond, I ended the call. 5 minutes later, I got another text from her brother. She's furious now. Guess the sympathy act didn't land. Good. Because I wasn't interested in playing the villain in her story anymore. I was done being in it at all. It didn't take long for her next move. 2 days after I shut down her sympathy play, I got a call from one of our mutual friends, Daniel. She asked me to talk to you, he said cautiously. Said you're holding on to something that's technically hers. I knew exactly what she meant. The joint savings account we'd opened for the wedding. My name was on it. Her name was on it. And after that first text where she called the whole thing off, I'd transferred every cent into my personal account. Not to keep it, but to make sure it didn't vanish into whatever work trip fund she was building. She's saying it's hers, Daniel continued. That you agreed she'd handle the wedding deposits, and you're now punishing her by freezing the money. I laughed. She canceled the wedding. That means there's nothing to deposit for. And since I was the one who funded 80% of it, I'd say it's safe where it is. Daniel hesitated. Look, I'm not taking sides. Yeah, you are, I cut in. Just make sure you know which side you're on. A few hours later, the group chat lit up. Her post was short but explosive. Some people would rather steal from their ex than admit they're bitter and alone. It was bait, pure and simple. And half the group bid, asking what happened. That's when her brother dropped in with a single message. You want to talk about stealing? How about we post the hotel invoices for the work trip? Silence. Then she left the chat entirely. But she wasn't done. The next morning, I got a letter from her attorney, a half-baked demand for return of funds belonging to Ms., her last name, with no proof, no receipts, and no legal standing. It was laughable. I forwarded it to my lawyer, who replied in under 10 minutes. This is an intimidation attempt, nothing more. We'll respond formally so she can't claim you ignored it. In the meantime, don't engage with her directly. It should have felt like the end of it, but I knew better. She'd already burned through her public defense, her sympathy act, and now her financial leverage. The only card left was the nuclear option, trying to drag mutual friends into a loyalty war. Sure enough, that evening, Daniel called again. She's telling people you're threatening her, he said. Funny, I replied. The only thing I've threatened is her ability to rewrite history. By the time I hung up, I realized something. She wasn't fighting to win anymore. She was just fighting not to lose completely. And that was a battle she'd already lost the second she sent that first text. The wedding's off. I didn't hear from her directly for almost a week. It was quiet enough that I almost thought she'd finally accepted it was over. Then a notification popped up on my phone, a tag in a Facebook post from someone I barely knew. When I clicked it, there it was. A 3-paragraph status from her, dripping with passive-aggressive venom. She never mentioned my name, but she didn't have to. The former fiancé who tried to ruin my life after I left him was obviously me. She talked about emotional abuse, about controlling behavior, about how sometimes leaving is the only way to save yourself. The comments section was full of sympathy, from people who didn't know the story, from friends of friends, from the kind of online audience that thrives on one-sided narratives. I could have ignored it. But then she crossed the line. She posted a second update, this time with a blurry screenshot of a bank transfer and the caption, proof that he took what wasn't his. That was the moment I decided she wasn't just smearing me. She was trying to rewrite reality entirely. So I called her bluff. I didn't post a rant. I didn't tag her. I just made a single post to my own profile. Since there seems to be some confusion going around, here are the actual facts. The joint account in question was 80% funded by me. The wedding was canceled by her, in writing, via text. The funds were transferred into my account for safekeeping until division could be settled, which she refused to discuss. Attached are the receipts from her work trip paid for during the same period. Folder link. Private, shared with friends. The comments came in fast. Half the people who'd been cheering her on suddenly went silent. The other half started asking her direct questions she clearly didn't want to answer. Her brother messaged me 15 minutes later. That's it. She's done. She's already deleting her posts. Sure enough, by the next morning, the smear campaign had vanished. But the damage, to her, was permanent. The people she'd counted on to blindly back her now knew there was more to the story, and some of them wanted no part of her drama anymore. I didn't feel triumphant. What I felt was finished. She could throw as many last punches as she wanted, but every one just swung wider than the last. And the best part? I hadn't raised my voice once. I'd just let the truth do the work. It was a Sunday morning when I saw her car pull up outside my place. No text, no call, just her, standing in my driveway like she still had a key to the front door. I opened it halfway. "What do you want?" "I just want to talk," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes gave her away, darting around like she was calculating an angle. "I told you," I said. "I'm done." "You don't understand," she started, stepping closer. "This has gotten out of hand. People are talking, my job's asking questions." "That's not my problem," I cut in. She flinched, then switched tactics again. "Look, we can fix this. We don't have to get married right now. We can take some time, work through things, and maybe start over." I couldn't help it. I laughed. "This isn't a fight about where to spend the holidays. You nuked the whole thing. And now you want me to help you rebuild the crater? I just need you to stop making me look bad," she said, her tone sharpening. "I'm not making you look bad," I replied. "You're just seeing yourself without the edits." Her face tightened. "You think you've won something here? You haven't. All you've done is make enemies." I stepped out onto the porch, forcing her to take a step back. "No," I said. "All I've done is stop being your cover story." She hesitated, clearly trying to gauge if another emotional play would work. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a white envelope. "This is my offer," she said, holding it out. I didn't take it. "I'm not bargaining," I told her. "And you don't get to frame this like some kind of settlement. The only thing I want from you is distance." For the first time, she seemed to really hear me. Her posture dropped. Her voice went flat. "Fine," she said. "But don't come crawling back when you realize you overreacted." I just smiled. "If that day ever comes, I'll let you know. Don't wait up." She left without another word. I watched her car disappear down the street, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the tension leave my shoulders. Because that was it. No more calls, no more posts, no more mutual friends trying to mediate. She'd played every card she had, and the deck was empty. And I wasn't just free, I was untouchable. 2 weeks passed without a single word from her. It was almost enough to make me believe she'd finally moved on. Then my phone buzzed with a message from a mutual friend. "You've seen her new Instagram post?" I hadn't. So I looked. Front and center was a photo of her at some rooftop bar, wrapped around a guy I'd never seen before. The caption read, "When you finally find someone who treats you right." The comments were a mix of congratulations and thinly veiled digs at me. "Little glad you're happy now. And you deserve better." Remarks from people who'd clearly heard her version of events. It was petty. It was performative. And it was exactly what I'd expected her to do. Try to overwrite the past with a shiny new storyline. What I didn't expect was the DM I got later that night. From him. "Hey man, it started. I don't know what went down between you two, but she's been saying some things about you. Just wanted to ask if there's anything I should know." I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. "I don't have a problem with you. But if you want to see who she really is, ask her about the work trip." I didn't send photos. I didn't send receipts. Just that one sentence. The next morning, her Instagram was gone. Not just the post, the whole account. Later that day, her brother called me. "She's melting down," he said flatly. Guess the new guy wasn't thrilled about finding out he was the third chapter in the same story. I didn't ask for details. I didn't gloat. I just told him, that's between them now. Because the truth was, I didn't need to lift another finger. Every time she tried to rebuild her image, the cracks showed faster. Every lie she told had a shorter shelf life. That night, I sat on my porch, phone face down on the table, feeling something I hadn't felt since before the engagement: peace. No more group chats buzzing with drama. No more half-friends fishing for both sides of the story. No more waking up to another public jab I'd have to decide whether to respond to. She could spin as many new narratives as she wanted. I wasn't part of them anymore. And if there's one thing she'll never admit, to anyone, not even herself, it's that losing me wasn't the worst thing that happened to her. It was losing control of the story. It was late, close to midnight, when I finally decided to delete the last folder. Not because I needed to protect her, because I didn't need it anymore. The photos, the texts, the screenshots, all of it had been my insurance policy for months. A safety net in case she tried to twist the truth again. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped checking it. Stopped caring if she ever made another move. My phone buzzed once more before I hit delete. It was her number. No name attached anymore. I let it ring. She didn't leave a voicemail. I stepped out onto the porch, the summer night air warm against my skin. From where I stood, I could see the streetlight casting a pale cone of light on the empty road. Peaceful. Uncomplicated. Mine. The thing about someone like her is they think the worst thing you can do to them is expose them. They're wrong. The worst thing you can do is stop playing entirely. Because without an audience, their stories collapse. Without a reaction, their power disappears. I sat down, phone still in my hand, and finally tapped delete all on that folder. The confirmation prompt flashed up. This action cannot be undone. Exactly. The screen went dark, and with it, the last tie between us. Somewhere out there, she was probably crafting her next version of events. In her head, maybe I was the villain, the fool, or the ghost she could still pull back into the drama if she found the right string to tug. But none of that mattered. Because tonight, there was no string. The hum of the streetlight was the only sound, and for the first time in a long time, I realized I wasn't waiting for the next move. There was no next move. She could keep rewriting her life 100 different ways. But the chapter with me in it? That one was already closed. I leaned back in my chair, letting the night settle around me. Not triumphant, not bitter, just done. And the quiet felt like winning.